And full name is Praveen Pedisetti. So I came to Australia about 22 years ago. I initially graduated as an agriculture, and I wanted to pursue something else, which I didn't know about what I wanted to pursue when I started. So speaking to one of my uncles back in here, and he said he picked up the name IDP, and then that's when I first heard about IDP. Then I researched a little bit, and then I went to Chennai to inquire more about the student education programs that they run in Australia and other countries. So even though I had opportunity to go to US, I thought I would actually pursue in Australia because my uncle was there at the time. So I went there to IDP and then checked on what they can help me with, and then the different programs they run at that time. So they initially gave me a master's program in agriculture, which I didn't want to pursue because I think it was 99. So that was the Y2K, year of Y2K. So there was quite a bit of technology drive and a lot of the landscape was changing at the time with the technology, and then I was more interested in getting into technology at the time for some reason. I don't know why. It was looking probably rosy at the time, maybe. So I thought, okay, I'll just try IT. But it was hard to get into IT at the time because of my non-engineering background. So luckily, IDP at the time gave me an option to pursue this master's in IT in UniSA. That was specially designed for people with non-engineering background, non-technical background. So because IT wasn't such a thing that anybody can enter. There's no such barriers of like prerequisites of like a specific study program. So they gave me two options. One is a master's in project management, and the other one was master's in IT. So actually, I applied for both the enrollments at the time, but I picked up the master's program to apply for visa because there's an issue at the time, because if I'm agri background going into IT, the Australian immigration will straight away stop me at the time because they didn't want me to pursue IT. So I picked up master's in project management, and then I got the visa. Then I landed in UniSA, and then I changed my enrollment to master's in IT. So that was a nice trick I played, but back in, it's like something that I can, even say to my friends funnily that, I picked up something else, and then I studied something else, and ended up somewhere else. So that was my short story about IDP like 22 years ago. And then when I landed in Australia, I think so naive, didn't have any background knowledge about how things were in Australia other than the cricket that actually combines India and Australia. Other than that, I didn't know anything about Australia at the time. So that was very naive when I landed, and then picking up Australian accent was one of the toughest things. Even though I was very good at English at the time, when I hear someone saying something in Australia, it was very hard to assimilate myself in my brain and understand. It was very hard. So it took like nearly 5-6 months going through the television programs every day, the different, because everybody has a different accent because of this being multicultural in Australia as well. So everybody had a different accent. So picking up multiple accents was one of the thing that I had a hard time, but I got over it in like 6 months' time, even in the classrooms. And then the funny story was the first class in UniSA, like I fell asleep in the first class. I was like snoring in a class of 200 people in a big auditorium. It's like I think it was a class called user interfaces, which I had no idea what user interface was at the time, even though I work on it every day now. So that was like a interesting story. There I finished, UniSA finished in 2 years time, and then I applied for PR. Even though before I applied for PR, I tried to get few jobs, applied for few jobs. I got selected in IBM straight after my PG, but I couldn't get into IBM because I didn't have PR. So I had to apply for PR, wait for 6 months. By the time I lost my job, like an opportunity to get into IBM, so I had to apply it again. Then I finished, I think I went back to India after that. I worked in India for about 2 years after I finished here. And that was the best experience of for an international student. I think study here, go back to your home country, work for a couple of years, and then if you have an opportunity to come back, when you come back, you will see different, the whole perspective will change when you're working in a professional world, because it's a combination of experiences with people as well as like the culture. So it gives you a different angle to work in your career as well. I am working for one of the 4 biggest banks in Australia. So I work in NAB. So I worked in different areas in NAB as well. I worked in solution architecture, worked as a developer, worked in a front-end development, I worked in full stack development. So I did work in multiple areas in NAB as well. But the journey started like about 15 years ago when I started, when I came back from Australia in 2005, I got into Alumni. That was the first company, which is SA Global now. Yeah. So that's when I started my first job. I worked there for about 8 years as a Java developer. Pretty impressive company that was at the time small. It's a small company, but it had multiple facets to it. Gave me a bit of perspective on different business areas, especially in the legal areas, compliance, risk, incident management, healthcare, all these kinds of domains which I had no idea about because I came from a telecom domain initially. So that gave me quite a bit of knowledge on the domains, because as a developer, you need to know the business also when you're actually programming something for a specific targeted functionality. So that all that experience actually gave me a bit of perspective when before I came into this bank. So they were asking about, because even when I was working in, say, Global, NAB was one of the biggest clients at the time. And then we know how important was risk and compliance business to in bank. So now I work in bank, now purely working for applications that bankers use day to day in their life, and give the best to the customers in terms of the customer experience, and also so most of the things, most of the times it starts with a problem. Any journey starts with a problem, and then we provide, basically divide the problem into multiple little problems and solve each problem at a time to give best to the bankers as well as in terms actually best to the customers as well. So I guess the most important part of my career journey here is end of the day, every business works for the end customers. So if you focus on your end customers' problems, you become a successful business. And every day is a learning process in terms of working in a big company like this. So even after coming 22 years in Australia, I still learn something new every now and then when I talk to people. So there's quite a bit of growth in career. I think you just have to grab the opportunity every time when you work through lots and lots of problems and lots of people. So networking is one of the most important bits when you're working in IT industry as well. IDP gave me a perspective into Australia. So when I went to IDP to inquire about my courses, the thing I wanted to pursue in Australia at that time. They were very professional, very, very professional at that time. Um, like, in India, you rarely go to someone and speak to them in English. That was I was nervous when I went into IDP, so I was because I thought I was going to face an Australian initially. Then I saw most of them are working like Indians there, and then they were very professional, asked me to wait, took me into an interview room, walked me through my future plans. I had lots of questions for them at the time. Most of them they were answering very professionally and gave me the right direction to get into Australia at the time. So that was like 22 years ago. Now, if I think about it, I'm sure they would have come a long way as well, like after being, because there's so many other organizations that are there right now, along with IDP, as I hear lots and lots of other international student programs. But IDP still stands out, I think, in my perspective, because the way they handle the students right from beginning until they land in university. I used to get even emails after I started in UniSA if to check on me, like how I was going with my program, if I was happy or not. That gave a lot of moral support, I guess, at the time, because when you are by yourself, away from your parents, away from your country, and then struggling through your day-to-day things and doing your job, cooking, cleaning, and everything, and studying was not easy to do. And a little bit of an email, something like that, will actually take you a long way. So that's how I still remember IDP and have a lot of respect for them even today. And being an international student is something, those are the important bits, because every little thing counts when you are here. I'm sure everybody feels the same way as well. So first thing I tell them is usually to be informed about what you're gonna do, and because nowadays is quite open. We have social networking, we have lots and lots of information sources. But when I started, there was nothing. You have to go to a library or maybe read some magazine or book or something like that. I think you have to plan a pathway when you're coming here. Do exactly like a proper plan in the sense what courses you want to do. I mean, plan in advance, like what courses are being offered, what subjects are being offered, what can be chosen, the list of credits, and then planning your week in a like the work days in a week, because you only go to uni maybe 2 to 3 days, and the rest 4 days you have to study, work, make some money for yourself as well. So that kind of information you have to be informed, and then also informed about which city you want to go to in Australia or somewhere else, if you're going to a different country. And also most important bit is don't get carried away with the part-time work, because even though you want to make money, it's not the end of the world. Because I usually advise everybody to spend more time in the university and with study groups and forums and stuff like that, because that's the one which actually is your insurance to go a long way, rather than short-term benefits when you're working 20 or 25 hours in a week. Communications, improve your communications. Second one will be improve social networking in professional networking, improve your special networking, and spend a lot of time to feel yourself authentic in terms of what you're studying. So if you're studying a very specialized subject, make sure you become authentic, and then I mean, like you should be on top of it basically. You should not like be too shallow. Should be more deeper. That's what I really mean. So those three things I think will get you a long way in your career, no matter what. Heard about IDP. So it's first time. This is my uncle who lives in Adelaide. So he came here like 15 or 16 years before me. So that was back in 1985. And he was like, he was one of the, what do you call, early adopters in our time. I think when he came to Adelaide, he was probably the second or third Indian in Adelaide at the time. And then when I came, I think in 2000, we were like 8 people or 10 people in the whole university, 10 Indians in the whole university. It was so funny. So this, my uncle came as a TAFE student in Adelaide Uni. I think in hospitality, and then he studied hospitality, and he also did some property management as well at the time, which I didn't know. I didn't even understand those 2 words when he told me back in 2000. What are they? What is hospitality? What is property management? What do you do? Yeah, so he came in 85 here, and then he got married to one of the local Australian at the time, and then he got 2 kids as well. Now they both are well settled in Adelaide. But he was one of my like role model at the time. Like he gave me lots of tips, like how to get a part-time job, how to spend your time wisely during the day, how to clean, how to cook, you know, all those little tips and pieces. Very important information when you're coming as a student, because back then, yeah, I didn't even probably made a coffee myself before I came to Australia, because in India everybody does. Everybody works for you. When you're here, you're all by yourself, but you need all those little tips to actually survive. So it was quite interesting when I landed here. Yeah, and my niece is my uncle's brother's daughter. So she just finished bachelor's in architecture. And she wants to pursue master's in architecture here. I think master's in urban architecture. And then she got an enrollment through IDP. That's quite funny. Like, got like 3rd generation of IDP now. So she wants to get into Adelaide Uni for a specific program in urban architecture, but unfortunately that program got cancelled. But she wants to come to Australia and then pursue her master's program. I actually forced her. I think she already did her IELTS and then prepped up already to come here. So it's a matter of time when she will land. Yeah. Innovation is a broader word. I think for a developer, innovation is using technology and using technologies and latest technologies in a special way and solving a complex problem. So when I work in a bank, I always look for a problem solving, new techniques of problem solving by using new technologies. If it's not already there, then try to introduce something which actually makes your job a lot easier. That's one way of innovating. And the second way of innovating is simplifying the job. So if it has multiple things, if it is asking for too much information, try to solve the problem by reducing the, I think the latest trends of using the user experiences and customer experiences programs. There's quite a bit of changes in the last 7 or 8 years, where the UI perspective has almost like completely facelifted everything nowadays. So we use most of those new techniques coming out of the UI experts and use them quite a bit in our day-to-day solution. Solution designs most of the time. Yeah, that's the innovation for me, I think. Yeah.